G'day legends, in this video we're going to take a look at Safari Pedal's plugin bundle. Now these guys have been rolling out some awesome plugins over the last 12 months and I've reviewed a couple of them on the channel in that time, but now they've rolled out enough plugins that they essentially have enough there that you can mix a song with just Safari Pedal plugins. They've got EQ, compression, saturation, limiters, delay, reverb, tape machines. There's so many plugins now that you can essentially mix a song with just Safari Pedal plugins.
I'm moving in a state. My mom keeps saying that I'm making mistakes. I totaled my car just by the lake.
So pretty cool, massive difference, really bringing the track to life and adding a lot of vibe. These aren't like your typical kind of plugins where it's just like EQ and compressing stuff. They're designed to have a lot of color and a lot of flavor. So you can see I've got these plugins littered across the whole mix, so they're adding a lot to this. Now I'm going to break down just a couple of little things here so you can just see how cool and how fun these are. And if you're wondering, the bundle has 12 plugins in it. It's $120 US, so essentially $10 a plugin, which plugins don't really get much cheaper than that. So that's pretty awesome. I think this is like massive bang for buck, and that's why I'm showing this to you. They haven't asked me to make this video. I am an affiliate of Safari Pedal, so if you do buy these plugins using the link in the description below, then you do support this channel. But even if you don't want to use my link, this is such a good value deal. So I just thought it was worth showing it to you because I'm having a lot of fun mixing with these plugins and getting some cool sounds out of them. And I just thought it was worth bringing it to your attention that there is a really good deal over here that's worth checking out. So let me show you the guitar solo because this is pretty ripping. So massive difference. We're adding a lot of bite to the guitar, helping it stand out in the mix, adding a little bit of extra drive to it. So let's just run through this real quick. We've got the drag and EQ, boosting some low end around 140 Hertz, like a 2 dB boost, 3 dB boost of that. And then we're boosting around 5K, about 5.6 dBs. And then we're boosting some high gain, 4 dBs at around 16K. And you can push and drive these bands into saturation as well with the drive, but just the EQ on it was enough. There's enough distortion on the guitar, and then I wanted to use the Gorilla Drive to add a little bit of grit afterwards. Pretty awesome. After that, we've got the Gorilla Drive, and this is such a cool plugin for adding a little bit of extra grit and drive to a sound. You can really make things sound more saturated and distorted very easily, and it sounds pretty nice. And you got the blend knob down here to kind of tame it. You got auto gain if you want to just make sure that as you push the level in, it doesn't get any louder. You just get to hear what the distortion's doing. Only dialing in a small amount of that. The solo's got a bit of grit on it already, but just wanted to add that little bit of extra thickness to it. And then we're following this up with the Dirty Dog Reverb. Now I've just loaded up a preset on this because there's some really cool presets in here, and the preset we're using is the electric guitar solo room, so seems fitting to use it on a solo, and it is quite a good preset. So the idea of this plugin is it's got drive, and then it's got reverb, and then it's got drive after that, as well as it's got gating too. So you can get some really interesting sounds. It's got filters as well, so you can roll off the highs and the lows. This is a really fun plugin. That is a massive vibe. Have a listen to the tail when you stop it. Hear how the gate cuts off the reverb? Creates this really cool slappy effect. And so you can experiment with adding more drive before and after. even with less drive, it's quite a nice sounding reverb as well. But as a creative vibey effect, having that overdriven reverb and gate is so cool. I love that, and I think that is a really cool effect. Really bringing the solo to life. So let me just show you this rhythm guitar. I've got some basic compression from Waves. We've got the Renaissance Axe, which is just a really old school compressor, but it does the trick. And following that, we have Dragon EQ. So let's have a listen to what it sounds like as we bypass this. So you can hear that sounds way more lively. It doesn't sound as muddy. There's a little bit of like this low mid woofiness in the guitar. And so this is really bringing the guitar to life and just cleaning it up. And so some of these EQ moves feel a little funny to me, but they sound so good. So we're boosting about 6 dBs at 140 Hertz. And we've got the low drive at 8%. And then we're boosting the mids around 2.7 dBs, and we're boosting at around 4K, so adding a bit of presence, and that one is at 16%. And then we're boosting the high gain, 3 dBs, at around 8.7K, and that is at 9% on the high drive. So adding a little bit of saturation to these bands. It's really adding some nice color to the track. So I've got 2 rhythm guitars. They have different settings. I won't bother running through the settings on the other guitar, but I've used Dragon EQ on both of them. Let's have a listen to what it sounds like when we bypass these in the mix. The guitars just get lost completely. This is just giving them enough color to stand out in the mix. Whatever EQ shapes and curves are going on under the hood of this sound really nice. Okay, so check this out. I've got this subtle effect going on using the Dirty Dog reverb. This one is a drum room distortion. So we've got the kick and snare close mics going to this. And I'm gonna bring this up so you can hear what it's doing and then bring it back down in the mix because it's a full-on effect. So when it's loud, it's very dominating. But have a listen to what this adds to the track. So cool effect. It's adding width and grit. Now we just pull this back down into the mix and it does add like this nice big roomy sound to the drums. So it's one of those things you gotta be really careful with the level on this kind of effect because you can feel like, oh, I've turned it down. Now I can't hear it that much, but then when you come back and listen to it later, you're like, oh, it sounds really reverby. So it's a dramatic effect, but just use it tastefully. I love what that adds to the kick and snare. It just makes them sound really big and massive. So let's take a look at the drum bus. I got a couple of things going on here. Let's have a listen to what it sounds like when we take off our control, which is our compression. And then if we take off Dragon EQ and then Rhino reverb. So we've got these 3 plugins in this order on the drum bus. And then we're following it up with a gain plugin, which is just trimming a little bit of gain off the drums. And then I have Black Salt Audio's clipper at the end just to chop off any peaks and just get this under control. So have a listen to the drums without these plugins. So it's really bringing them to life. That little bit of compression and EQ, you can hear it's bringing out all the room sounds as well. Makes the drum sound a lot bigger, which is really cool. Now there's plenty of cool presets that you can play with here, and I've just pulled up the drums Parallel Heaven, and then I've just tweaked the settings a little bit, pulled the blend back to around 19%. Have a listen to what it sounds like when we crank it. So it's cool. Adds a lot of smack and aggression to the drums. And then over on the Dragon EQ, just a couple of things going on here. We have about a 3 dB boost at 14K, and then about a 1.5 dB boost at 5.5K, roughly around there. And then we have a 2 dB boost at 56 Hertz, and then a tiny bit of saturation on the low end. It's such a cool EQ. It's so easy to bring things to life with this. And it's great that there's no display of frequencies. You just use your ears and you pick things that you like the sound of, boost them, cut them to find your sound. And then lastly, Rhino Reverb. Really cool plugin, really cool reverb, but we're using it instead as a little bit of saturation. There's a preset on here called Drum Bus on Rhino, and I've shown you this before, but it's a really cool preset. Basically, they pull all the reverb out, boosting into this, adding a little bit of width, and then the blend at about 63%. It just does something to the drums that sounds really cool. I don't know what it's doing, but it's like a little bit of saturation to the drums is going on there. It sounds pretty cool. Maybe it's that little bit of width that's happening that makes it sound good. Now, just quickly, let's have a look at the bass. We've got some compression and then a bit of EQ in that order. So we've got the out control on the pump setting. So this is hitting the bass with a bit of harder compression. Have a look at the bass signal up here. Pretty consistent. It doesn't need a lot of compression. It looks like it's already been compressed a little bit when it was tracked. So we don't need to compress this super hard, but we can pull a bit of character out of the compression. Have a listen to what it sounds like when we crank it up. So I pushed the input pretty hard and we're getting a bit of saturation and distortion happening. Now I pulled that back to about 20% and that just helps the bass have a little bit of extra color. Now I love a little bit of grit on bass and I think that helps it cut in the mix a little bit as well. Then we're following it up with the EQ, and now this time we are doing a boost at 110 Hertz, about 3.5 dBs. Now we're cutting about 2.5 dBs at 1.5K. Now this is normally a place I kind of like to boost the bass, but I'm driving it as well. I'm pushing it up 24, 23%. So this is already boosting the kind of perceived volume of that area, and we're just sort of tucking it back in a little bit. Now we're doing quite a big boost, 6 dBs around 10K. Now this is just to bring out a little bit of the fingers and a little bit of attack. You can hear we're getting a bit more push out of the bass now. Okay, so let's take a look at the mix bus. We've got our control for our mix bus compression. Then we've got rabbit tape, doing a little bit of tape saturation, rolling off some of the highs, adding a little bit of character. We've got drag and EQ, just shaping the mix a little bit. Then I've got Blackstone Audio's clipper, just catching a couple little peaks. And then we also have Lion Master after that. So this is like a brick wall limiter type thing. So let's have a listen to what it sounds like, and then we'll compare to what it sounds like without any of these plugins on the mix bus. Okay, you can hear it's adding a lot of character. Sounds really cool. So you can take a look at these settings. I've got it on mix bus and the blend at 70%. Now the rabbit tape, this one's really cool. This is their latest plugin, and have a listen to what this sounds like. I've got the blend at 20%. Have a listen to what it sounds like when I crank this up. So it's a pretty cool plugin. There's a lot of color options there, and you can crank that, get it distorted, add in some wow and flutter. But one of the things is if you have wow and flutter on and then use a blend knob, it gets really phasey. So they recommend not to do that unless you're after a really weird sounding phasey effect. But just with those settings, 20%, it's adding some nice richness to the mix. Now Dragon EQ, just boosting some highs at 17k, about 2 dBs, half a dB cut at around 2.7k, and then a 2 dB boost at around 25 Hz. So this is the Mix Bus Soft and Tender Dragon preset, and then I just tweaked it a little bit. Gets rid of that muddiness in the mid-range, makes it sound a little bit more exciting with some highs and lows. Sounds pretty nice. So Line Master, this is just a nice little brick wall limiter that you put on the end of your mix. It has saturation, it's got width. It's got a low and a high band EQ, which is great on the limiter just to help shape it a bit if you're pushing into it and you feel like you need a bit more excitement, or you need to cut a little bit of highs or boost a little bit of lows. That's a quick way of doing it. Now we're pushing at about 7 dB and getting around 4 dBs of gain reduction. So I can push it up to around 8 or 9, it still sounds pretty good. A little bit of saturation, tiny bit of width, tiny little boost to the lows, 1 dB boost to the highs. Let's have a listen to what it sounds like when we bypass it. Because it's level matched, we can hear what the limiter's doing, and it doesn't really sound like it's crushing the transients at all. So one more time listening to this off and on. Add some really nice excitement and character. These plugins are so cool. I've got Flamingo Verb in there as well. I've showed this one off on the channel before. Really cool plugin. I've got this on the guitars and the vocals. Really nice sounding reverb, and lots of cool options. It goes from like a plate to a spring to a room, and you got drive, you got width. It's everything you need to get some fun reverb sounds. Works really good on guitars and vocals, pretty much anything. I've used it on lots of stuff, drums, getting a drum room sound. Used it on a really chill song with some piano just to add some stereo width and color to it. I think it was like a mono piano track, and it worked really well. So I know this video might be getting a little long-winded now, so let's just look at one more thing. So let's have a look at these vocals, and I want to try and add a little bit extra to these now too. We're going to add a little bit of saturation with the Dragon EQ. I'll show you my EQ that I have on there at the moment. We've got about half a dB boost at 200 Hz. Now we've got about half a dB boost at 1.6K, and then we've got about a 2 dB boost at 15K.
I'm moving in a state. My mom keeps saying that I'm making mistakes. I totaled my car just by the lake. I was gonna take a swim, but maybe it's...
So it's helping the vocals sit in the mix a little bit nicer. They cut through a little bit better. Don't kind of tuck away like they do in some parts when the EQ is bypassed. Now I want to add a little bit of saturation to these bands. So let's see what we can do with this.
I quit my job. I'm moving in a state. My mom keeps saying that I'm making mistakes. I totaled my car just by the lake. I was gonna take a swim, but maybe it's too late. I picked up graffiti just for something to do. Now every single room is now pink and blue. I went to Tahiti just for the view. Now I smile just remembering.
So that's pretty cool. We can add a little bit of grit and color to the vocal just within these bands and really shape the tone of it.
I quit my job. I'm moving in a state. My mom keeps saying that I'm making mistakes. I totaled my car just by the lake. I was gonna take a swim, but maybe it's too late.
That's a vibe. That sounds really cool. And this vocal definitely suits having a little bit of that saturation and drive on it. Definitely works really well in the mix. And we've also got Dirty Dog on the vocal. So have a look at this. We've got the vibey lead vocal preset on the Dirty Dog. I'm going to turn this up so you can really hear it, but you can see I've got it pushed down around 33 at the moment. Just a little bit of this is good. It's one of those things like it can really overtake the mix.
I quit my job. I'm moving in a state. My mom keeps saying that I'm making mistakes. I totaled my
So really cool effect.
It's too late, I picked up graffiti.
Love that, but subtle. You got to keep it pretty low in the mix so it doesn't get too carried away.
I quit my job, I'm moving interstate, my mom.
And we got a little bit of Flamingo Verb on there as well. So you'd hear the guitar and the vocal being sent to Flamingo Verb, just for a little bit of reverb on both of those sounds. So there you go. I could go through and keep showing you all the little bits and pieces that are going on, but this video will just go forever. So really cool plugins. Once again, just have a listen to what it sounds like without Safari pedals on.
I quit my job, I'm moving interstate. My mom keeps saying that I'm making mistakes. I totaled my car just by the lake. I was gonna take a swim, but maybe it's too late.
Super cool, super vibey. It's not like this like overly pristine, polished kind of sound that you get from like your standard kind of plugins. It's got a lot more character to it. It's got a little bit of that analog kind of vibe. Like the whole idea of these is they're colorful, fun plugins. And it's just a solid deal. 12 plugins, 120 bucks, 10 bucks each. You really can't go wrong. Now, I need to get back to finishing this mix because they're waiting for it and I need to wrap it up. But I just wanted to show you these plugins because I think they're really cool and a lot of fun to use when mixing. Now, if you do want to grab a copy and you do want to support this channel, then use the affiliate link in the description below, but there's no pressure to do that. As always, guys, thanks for watching. And if you're looking to improve your mixing skills, then check out this pop country mix course that I put together.